Hello everyone, welcome to APTI Plus Academy for Civil Services. We are back again with the UPSC weekly current affairs session, 30 topics in 30 minutes. So let's get started. So the first topic is central government implements 4 new labor codes simplifying 29 existing laws. So what are the various labor codes? The 4 new labor codes. The first one is Codes on Wages 2019. Okay. Then is the Industrial Relations Code 2020. Then is the Code on Social Security, very important, Social Security 2020. And finally, Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code. So if we talk about the Code on Wages Act, it covers a number of laws like the Payment of Wages Act of 1936, okay, Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act, Equal Remuneration Act. These all laws have been like subsumed under this. Now here under this, every worker in both organized as well as unorganized sector has now the right to minimum wages. Very important, right to minimum wages. Okay, no discrimination will be done in pay or recruitment, including transgender employees. Very important to note, including transgender employees. Okay, and wages must be paid on time and unauthorized deductions are also not allowed. Now, if we talk about the Industrial Relations Code of 2020, it subsumes a number of laws like the Trade Union Act, the Industrial Employment Act, Industrial Disputes Act, etc. And if we talk about the provisions, then under this there will be like fixed term employment, because workers can be hired on time-bound contracts with the same wages and benefits as like permanent staff, and gratuity has to be given after 1 year. Very important to note. Okay. Now regarding retrenchment or layoff of employees, earlier for like if 100 workers were affected and they were like laid off, in that case approval was needed. But now only if more than 300 workers are affected, then only approval needs to be like taken before layoff or retrenchment. Okay. So these are the provisions that you need to remember. Now if you talk about worker coverage also, it has expanded the worker coverage, because it includes sales staff, journalists and like supervisory employees as well, that are earning up to like 18,000 month. And if you talk about the Code on Social Security 2020, this actually covers 9 acts, including the Employees Compensation Act and Maternity Benefit Act. Now under this Code on Social Security, all workers, including the gig and platform various platform workers, now they'll get social security like the ESI and C and etc. Okay, and ESIC coverage is now nationwide, and this is not limited to specific areas as well. And finally, if we talk about the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020, this covers 13 acts, including the Factories Act of 1948, Plantation Labour Act of 1951 and Mines Act of 1952. And under this, workers above 40 years, they get free annual health checkups, and this applies to this particular code applies to hazardous jobs even if there is only one worker in the establishment. Okay, so simplification and the strengthening of the labor codes, and finally the implementation has been done. Moving to the next topic, Ratanmahal Wildlife Sanctuary. Okay, so a wild tiger has permanently settled in Gujarat's Ratanmahal Wildlife Sanctuary for the first time in decades, and with this, Gujarat becomes the only state in India hosting all 3 big cats like the Asiatic lion, the Indian leopard and the tiger within a shared natural landscape. Here all we need to know is, where is Ratanmahal Wildlife Sanctuary? Of course, it is in Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh border in central Gujarat, okay, Dahod district. This you need to remember. Another thing that you need to remember is that this particular wildlife sanctuary is known for sloth bears. Very important to note that they are known for sloth bears, and now they are gaining a recognition as a tiger habitat as well. This was declared a wildlife sanctuary in the year 1982, and this was originally part of the Devgarh Badia princely state. And here, if we talk about the ecological features, then the forest types are dry teak forest, mixed deciduous forest, dry bamboo breaks, etc. Okay, and finally, it forms the catchment of the Panam River. This you need to remember from prelims perspective. Panam River, which is vital for both Dahod and Panchmahal districts, so it definitely supports water conservation. Next is National Industrial Classification 2020. 2025. So the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, it launched the National Industrial Classification 2025 during the 75th anniversary of the National Sample Survey Office, or NSSO. Okay. Now, if we talk about the National Industrial Classification 2025, basically it is a 6-digit standardized system for classifying all the economic activities in India, and it basically replaces the 2008 version, which had like 5 digits. So now it will have 6 digits. And if we talk about this particular classification, it was like started in 1962, okay, and then it was revised multiple times in 1970, 87, 98, 2004, 2008, and finally now in 2025. This aligns with United Nations International Standard Industrial Classification. Okay, so this basically is a standardized system which will like classify all the economic activities that are going on in India. And now there are like certain emerging sectors like cloud service, blockchain, the renewable energy, waste management, etc. Now these also have been included as a part of those economic activities. Then there are new categories which have been added in this 2025 classification, like logistics, real estate, food services, environmental remediation, etc. Okay, and this particular like classification, it serves as a standard framework for official statistics, surveys, and policy planning in India. Now, if we talk about NSSO particularly, so it is the India's main institution for large-scale socio-economic surveys. We all know it was established when in the year 1950 by Professor P.C. Mahalanobis. Okay, and NSSO collects data on employment, health, education, industries, and prices, and it is headed by Director General under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Important surveys that are conducted by it are Annual Survey of Industries and PLFS, that is the Periodic Labor Force Survey. So these were the important things that you need to remember regarding this topic. Briefly, we'll discuss another topic, that is 150th anniversary of Birsa Munda. Okay, recently this was celebrated. Birsa Munda, we all know that his birth anniversary is celebrated nationwide as Jan Jatiya Gaurav Divas, and Birsa Munda was born in Jharkhand. He was a tribal freedom fighter, social reformer, and leader of Munda tribe. Very important, and he was revered as Bhagwan or Dharti Aba, or father of the earth, for protecting the tribal lands and forests. And he of course led the Munda rebellion, which is also referred to as Ul Gulan. Okay, and he mobilized the tribes like Munda, Urao, and Khadiya for the land rights and self-rule to resist the exploitative intermediaries and the Britishers as well. He promoted social reforms like anti-alcoholism, rejection of superstition, hygiene, and cultural revival. And he coined the slogan, "End the Queen's rule and establish our own rule." And he practiced guerrilla warfare also. This you need to remember. Okay, he founded the Bir Site sect. Okay, and we all know that his efforts, his rebellion later on led to the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908. Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act of 1908. This you need to remember. And of course, he is known for protecting the tribal land rights. Now, the next topic is cold wave in Telangana. So, recently the state experienced abnormal temperature drops. All you need to know is the definition of cold wave. So, basically, cold wave is a sudden, unusual drop in minimum temperatures causing stress or danger to humans. Okay, and it is declared when temperatures follow below specific thresholds and in plains, hills, or coastal areas for 2 consecutive days. This is extremely important to note, that for 2 consecutive days, if in plain areas, to give you an example, the temperature is equal to 10 degrees centigrade or it falls below 10 degrees centigrade in plain areas, then we call it a cold wave. And if it is less than 4 degrees centigrade or equal to 4 degrees centigrade in plain area, then we call it severe cold wave. Now, if we talk about the hilly regions, then in that case 0 degrees centigrade, less than 0 degrees centigrade, we call it a cold wave. And in coastal regions, less than 15 degrees centigrade or equal to 15 degrees centigrade or 4.5 degree centigrade drop. Okay, with a drop of 4.5 degrees centigrade straight away, and below or equal to 15 degrees centigrade in coastal region, we call it a cold wave. So this is the criteria that you need to know. It mainly occurs between November to February. This is all you need to know about this particular topic. Moving to the next topic, precision biotherapeutics. So what is it? Basically, these are medicines or therapies that are designed specifically for an individual's genes, proteins or cells instead of one size fits all approach. So basically in this, gene editing, RNA therapies, antibodies, a number of different techniques are used to treat diseases at their root causes. Okay, so in this what happens is doctors, they study a person's DNA, okay, or biomarkers to understand the exact cause of the disease. Then after that, the scientists design therapies to fix or modify the faulty gene or the pathway. So basically they try to work on the faulty gene. Precision medicine, which we have studied earlier also. So the treatment is personalized rather than one size fits all, or just like hitting the medicine in the dark. The treatment is personalized with correct doses and delivery for each patient. So of course it has applications in cancer, genetic disorders, metabolic and heart diseases, and rare and infectious diseases as well. Okay, now moving to the next topic, Global Methane Status Report 2025. Okay, so recently this particular report was released, and according to this particular report, if we talk about the projected emissions, then without extra action, methane emissions in 2030 could be 369 million tons, only 4% lower than 2021. So we are not like able to reduce the emission commensurately. Okay, and there's a huge ambition gap because current national plans would cut emissions by just 8% and far short of the 30% goal that we have right now. Okay, and of course implementing all technically feasible reductions could cut emissions by 32%, and we also need to avoid 0.2 degree centigrade warming because this will reduce, or this will prevent the premature deaths that are happening, okay, because of the various emissions. So these are the things. Now if we talk about the sector wise contribution, then energy sector, it releases 72%, agriculture 18%, and waste 10%. Okay, so globally this is there. And in India also, if we talk about the major sources of methane, then agriculture, it releases 42%, okay, energy 38%, and waste 20%, that is from the landfills and wastewater. So these are the things that you need to remember about global methane status report. Okay, the target is what, as mentioned earlier, 30% reduction by 2030. That is the global methane pledge, but of course we are not even close to that. Moving to the next topic, dugong, sea cow. Okay, so India's population continues to decline sharply. If we talk about the dugong, okay, and this was reported by IUCN Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi. They have basically highlighted the decline of India's dugong population, especially in the Gulf of Kutch area in Gujarat, Gulf of Mannar, Park Bay, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, now if we talk about dugong, it looks something like this. It is large, gentle, herbivorous marine mammal. This you need to remember, and it relates to manatees and elephants. Okay, and it is found in shallow, warm coastal waters of Indian and Pacific Oceans. In India, it is found in the Gulf of Mannar, Park Bay, Gulf of Kutch, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And if we talk about globally, it is found in East Africa to Australia, and the largest population is near the northwestern Australia. Conservation status, we talk about it is in the IUCN red list, and it is in the vulnerable list, and the population of dugong, it is declining since 1982. In India, it is under the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, so it has got highest protection, of course, because of its significance, because it protects the coastal ecosystems, biodiversity and carbon storage as well. Okay, and it is strictly herbivorous, as mentioned earlier. It acts as an ecosystem engineer because it maintains healthy seagrass beds. They basically feed on the seagrass, so they control the population of the seagrass also, and the seagrass also, it grows, and they actually act as blue carbon sinks, and this helps in what? Climate regulation. They live up to 70 years, and they reproduce quite slowly. They are dying, and because of coastal development, they have gotten and pollution, there is habitat loss, and of course dredging activities also. it is destroying the seagrass that they feed, and if seagrass gets destroyed, they will also not survive. And of course they get entangled due to accidentally in the nets. And marine pollution is another thing. Okay, arsenic, cadmium, mercury, all these affect the health of dugong. Next is India-United States liquefied petroleum gas deal. So recently India signed its first formal long-term LPG import contract with US, and we are trying to source 2.2 million tons in 2026, and this would be a historic step, of course, because of the arm twisting by America, that we are going ahead with this thing. Basically we want to diversify also our LPG supply beyond West Asia. This will strengthen India-US energy partnership also, and it will improve energy security and reduce trade imbalances. Okay, it is basically a 1-year structured contract. And right now if we talk about India's LPG profile, we import around 60% of total LPG demand. Okay, in 2024 we imported 21 million tons of LPG, and 90% of this is traditionally from West Asian countries like UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. So rapid growth is also there due to Ujjwala scheme expansion. So this was all about India-US LPG deal. Now let's talk about the defense production and exports in India. So recently India achieved record defense production and exports. If we talk about the 2024 and 2025 period under the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, and the government aims for 3 lakh crore production and 50,000 crore exports by 2029. So these are the facts and figures that you can the trends that you can remember. If we talk about the production, indigenous defense production, that is the production of defense equipments within India, it reached around 1,27,000 crore in 2023-2024. This was around 174% increase from 2014-15. Again, if we talk about overall output, total defense production in 2024-2025 hit 1.5 lakh crores. Okay, 1.54 lakh crore, and this is driven by defense public sector units, private companies and MSMEs. Okay, exports, if we talk about, then the exports are growing. Okay, 23,000 crore from 1,000 crore in 2014. Private sector share has also increased by 23%. Okay, with 16,000 MSMEs contributing to high value. Domestic procurement has also increased. Now, moving to the next topic, tiger safaris ban in core tiger habitat. So PIL was filed, and after that, of course, the Supreme Court has now issued directions to protect the tiger habitats. What is it? Now states must notify core and buffer areas of all tiger reserves within how many months? 6 months. Very important to note. Okay, firstly you have to remember what are the 3 zones. One is the core zone. Core zone is followed by the buffer zone, and finally buffer zone is followed by the transition zone. Okay, now core zone, where strictly prohibited, no human activity, limited activities are allowed in the buffer zone. And then transition zone, here the sustainable development activities such as farming and forestry are allowed. Now in the transition zone between these two. Now if we talk about the sensitive zone, states must notify core and buffer areas of all tiger reserves within 6 months. This has been mandated by the Supreme Court. And the ecologically sensitive zones around tiger reserves, they must be notified within 1 year. Another important mandate. Okay, each reserve must prepare a plan within 3 months, and this has to be monitored by the National Tiger Conservation Authority. Okay, and tiger safaris, of course, they are prohibited in core areas. They are only allowed on the non-forest land with rescue centers, and that too using electric vehicles. Okay, so states should consider human wildlife conflict as a natural disaster. Okay, and pay ex gratia to victims. This has been notified. And then there are certain other activities that are prohibited in buffer zones like mining, sawmills, polluting industries, major hydro projects and tourism related exploitation. What are the things that are allowed? Very important to note, because these are the kind of questions that appear in prelims. What are allowed in buffer zone, what are not, what are allowed in core zone, what are not, etc. So the activities that are allowed in the buffer zones are what? Regulated hotel and resorts, groundwater use, fencing, road widening. You just note things down that I'm saying. Okay, controlled night vehicular movement, etc. Next topic is Batukeshwar Dutt. Okay, he was a revolutionary who was associated with early anti-colonial resistance. So his birth anniversary was recently observed. So born in 1910 in Bengal, Indian revolutionary and freedom fighter, close comrade of Bhagat Singh. He was involved in 1929 Central Assembly bombing to protest British rule, and his role in freedom struggle. Yes, he was a member of HSRA, that is the Hindustan Socialist Republic Association. He was convicted in the Delhi Assembly bomb case. He spent 9 years in various jails. Then he was arrested again during the Quit India movement of 1942. Again, he was jailed for 4 years, and he maintained close ties with Bhagat Singh's family. Ajay Warrior 2025, this was in news, okay, because the 8th edition of the Indian United Kingdom joint military exercise Ajay Warrior began in Rajasthan. So we have already discussed the things that would be asked in prelims examination. Firstly, between India and UK, a joint military exercise, okay, and this is what? A bilateral military exercise, annual in nature, because it happens every year. Focus is on counter-terrorism operations in semi-urban areas, okay, and some other exercises, if we talk about, are Konkan. It is a naval exercise between Indian Navy and UK Royal Navy. And then Indradhanush. It is an air exercise between Indian Air Force and UK Air Force. Okay. So one is Konkan and another one is Indradhanush. Okay. This you need to remember. Moving to the next topic, Codex Alimentarius Commission. Okay, so recently India was re-elected to the executive committee of this commission for the Asia region until 50th session in 2027. So if we talk about the Codex Alimentarius Commission, basically this particular commission ensures food safety, protects consumer health and promotes fair practices in international food trade. Okay, it was established in the year 1963 by the FAO, that is the Food and Agriculture Organization, and the World Health Organization. Very important to note from prelims perspective. Okay, and it develops international food standards, guidelines and codes of practice so that it can be ensured that food is safe, it is of good quality, and it is traded fairly across the countries. Now if we talk about the members, 189 members are a part of it, including the European Union members, and of course annual sessions happen and the meetings happen. They rotate between Geneva and Rome. These are the two locations, but the most important thing is India has been re-elected as a member of it, as the to the executive committee of this particular commission for the Asia region. Simultaneously, we will be talking about a particular topic called CAFE 3 norms. Okay. Now, what is CAFE? CAFE stands for Corporate Average Fuel Efficiency. This is what CAFE stands for. Okay, so basically these are the rules, CAFE rules. They basically set fuel efficiency and emission standards for passenger vehicles in India. This was introduced in 2017 and it applies to petrol, diesel, LPG, CNG, hybrid and electric vehicles under 3500 kgs. Please note these things down. Okay, so the main aim is to reduce oil dependence and air pollution. So you have to stick to certain rules that have been set by this particular these norms. Okay, and now these have been tightened much so that they're higher penalties and in order to reduce our dependency further. And there are we must achieve much higher efficiency improvements and heavier SUVs, so smaller cars are promoted. Okay, then there's a weight based formula where, as mentioned earlier, the weight of the vehicles matter in this case. So anyhow, CAFE 3 norms are extremely important from exam point of view, and that is why we discussed this. After the Delhi blast, the incident, white collar terrorism was in news. You just have to know the definition of it. Basically, these are terrorist acts by educated professionals who use skills, networks and trusted positions to plan or execute attacks. Okay, and they do it often covertly. Okay, and what are the reasons behind the rise of such white collar terrorism? Of course, radicalization through online platforms, terror groups exploit the professional expertise, then social and religious grievances, weak institutional vigilance and advanced technology that aids the covert operations. We all know that the radicalized doctors, they are linked to Jaish-e-Mohammed. Okay, and after the Delhi blast, the white collar terrorism was in news. Moving to the next topic, Sentinel-6B satellite. This was launched from California, US. It is basically what? An ocean observation satellite. Okay, ocean observation satellite. It basically aims to measure rising sea levels and assess climate impacts. Okay, now 6 specific instruments are on board. Okay, this orbits Earth at 7.2 kilometers per second speed, and so one revolution takes around 112 minutes. So of course it will like observe the earth multiple times in a day, and it provides high precision, high like sea level data, which has like high accuracy. Okay, and it will cover 90% of the global oceans. Okay, and this is particularly like a mission of the NASA and the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, which is there along with European Space Agency. Sentinel 6B. Earth System Sciences Council. So 5 institutes under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, they have been merged into a single body referred to as Earth System Sciences Council. Okay, so what are the institutes that have been merged? Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Pune, very important to note. Okay, National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, okay, NCPOR, Goa, National Institute of Ocean Technology, Chennai, National Center for Earth Sciences Studies, Trivandrum, and Indian National Center for Ocean Information and Services, Hyderabad. So these are the 5 entities that have been merged under the Earth System Sciences Council, and the aim is to streamline governance and tackle climate related challenges, which includes what? Erratic monsoons, melting polar regions, and environmental hazards. Okay, so this was all about Earth System Sciences Council. Ministry of Earth Sciences acts as a president of this ESSC. Hanoi Convention was in news. Hanoi Convention on Cybercrime. So what is it? Basically 72 nations recently signed the United Nations Convention against Cybercrime in Hanoi to strengthen global action against cybercrime. Please note that India did not sign it. Okay, it provides a universal legislative framework for investigating and prosecuting cybercrime. It also enhances international cooperation and also gives technical support for countries who have limited infrastructure. Please note that this is what? Legally binding. Very important to note. So a question can come, what is Hanoi Convention related to? So of course cybercrime. It is legally binding. India is not a member. It is a first universal convention. Okay, so now countries can continue signing until next year. So it will definitely, it criminalizes what? Hacking, data interference, online fraud, non-consensual dissemination of intimate images, sexual abuse, grooming. These things are all like criminal activities under this particular convention. So of course this will facilitate cross-border electronic evidence sharing. There will be 24/7 law enforcement cooperation. Okay, and after the 40th ratification, it will enter into force. Okay, and the secretariat is at United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, that is UNODC. Very important to note. Moving to the next topic, Plant Varieties Protection and Farmers' Right Act 2001. So the Union Agriculture Minister announced plans to amend this particular act with stakeholders' inputs to strengthen farmers' rights and support plant breeding innovation. So if we talk about this particular act, so the purpose of the act is to establish a system to protect the various varieties of the plants and recognize both commercial breeders and the farmers. Okay, it complies with the TRIPS obligations as well. And if we talk about the rights under this particular act, then there are breeders' right, okay, exclusive rights to produce, sell, market, distribute, import, export protected varieties, and can license or take legal action against any sort of infringement if there is. Okay. Finally, if we talk about researchers' right, then of course under this act they can use registered varieties for experiments. The repeated use requires breeders' permission definitely. And farmers' rights, of course, farmers who develop or evolve a variety can register and protect it like breeders. They can save, sow, use, exchange, share or sell farm produced seeds, but cannot sell it as a branded seed. This is very important to note. Okay, so trade related intellectual property rights, TRIPS. Okay, it complies with this particular thing. Now this particular act was established in the year 2005. Okay, it has chairperson plus 15 members, and it functions includes what? Grant the rights to the breeders, reward farmers for conserving traditional varieties, and protect farmers' rights over farm saved seeds, support research innovation, and maintain a national register for plant varieties. Okay, moving to the next topic, ginkgo toothed beaked whales. As you can see, it looks something like this. Okay, so one of the 24 beaked whale species, and it is the second most diverse cetaceans after dolphins. And we all know that cetacean, the word cetacean is used to describe all the 90 species of whales, dolphins and porpoises. These are basically aquatic mammals that belong to the infraorder Cetacea. Okay, so whale, dolphins, like porpoises, they belong to this particular like group. And if we particularly talk about this ginkgo-toothed beak whale, okay, they have the ability to dive. They're the deepest diving mammals and they surface only briefly for air, mostly like far offshore. Okay, and they live in the tropical and warm temperate waters of the western Pacific Ocean, mainly in the deep offshore waters. They're quite elusive in nature, and like there's no like conservation status because the data is deficient, so there's not like enough information to assess any risk to them. Okay, so this is all about ginkgo-toothed beaked whales. Next topic is lead IT, or leadership group for industry transition. So recently at the COP30 Brazil, India reaffirmed its commitment to lower carbon industrial transitions under lead IT. So this basically like lead IT was launched in the year 2019 and jointly by India and Sweden, and it was supported by the World Economic Forum. Very important to note, supported by World Economic Forum at the United Nations Climate Action Summit. Purpose is to accelerate decarbonization of hard to abate like high emitting industries like steel, cement, then aluminium, chemicals, etc., so that we can reach the target of net zero by 2050. Okay, so this was all about lead IT. Now the next topic is protected area permit system. So recently what happened was Nagaland Chief Minister urged a review of the like PAP in the state. So basically it is a special permit for foreign nationals to visit certain sensitive regions near the international borders, and it gets the legal basis from Foreigners Act of 1958. That is very important to note. Foreigners Protected Areas Order Act. Okay, Foreigners Protected Areas Order Act 1958. And this is mandatory for foreign citizens except Bhutanese, and India may need enough line permit in overlapping areas. So this is usually time bound and this is valid for like specific routes and tourist circuits, like if somebody is going to a particular place, a sensitive zone in a particular area near the international borders, and minimum 2% groups via registered tour operators are allowed under this. Now, which are the areas that are under the PAP as of 2025? The states are Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Himachal Pradesh, Ladakh, Rajasthan. Okay, and this is controlled by the Ministry of Home Affairs, of course, and this is completely different from RAP or restricted area permit, because that mainly applies to Andaman and Nicobar Islands and parts of Sikkim. Okay, but the policies are similar, but the permits are different if we talk about. Moving to the next topic, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Okay, so Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So recently what happened is the Union Agriculture Ministry approved rules to include crop losses caused by wild animal attacks under this particular insurance scheme. So we all know that this particular insurance scheme was launched in the year 2016. Okay, 2016 by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Basically, it provides financial support to farmers that are suffering crop loss or damage. So, insurance scheme, basically, premium, if we talk about, is the amount a farmer pays to avail that insurance coverage. Okay, so the maximum premium is for Kharif food and oilseeds, 2% of the crop value. This the farmer needs to pay. 1.5% of Rabi food and oilseeds, commercial and horticultural crops, 5% of the crop value. So this is the minimum premium that a farmer needs to pay in order to avail the insurance. Okay, and if we talk about the insurance, then and part of the premium that government pays, if we talk about the normal states, 50% by states and 50% by the center, and for northeastern and Himalayan states, 90% by center and 10% by the state. So paying the premium ensures that compensation is there if crops are damaged by insured risks. Now, what are the things that are covered under this? So, non-preventable risks like what? Natural fire, then lightning, storm, hailstorm, tornado, flood, inundation, landslide, pests and diseases, drought. And now, wild animal attacks have been added to this. Okay, and claims under this insurance scheme are processed within 2 months of the harvest. Very important to note. And this uses satellite image, drones and mobile apps to estimate the crop losses accurately. So this was all about Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Please cover another topic for this, this is referred to as dark pattern, a completely different topic from this, but we'll discuss this because recently dark patterns like were in news. Okay, so basically what are these? Sometimes we see that there are certain like two websites of a particular known thing. For instance, like Flipkart, it will have two websites. Okay, so the design would be same, the entire UX UI would be same. This is mainly to mislead users into unintended actions. Recently what happened was a tourist, she booked the rooms of a hotel from the website itself, and later on she found out that it was a fraud. Okay, that was a fake website, and like she lost 30,000 rupees because of that. So you understood what is dark patterns, of course, from this. So basically the deceptive UI or UX designs that mislead users into unintended actions. Okay, so and they cause unintended purchases, privacy risks, overuse, and erode consumer trust. So recently, like this has been classified as unfair trade practices under the Consumer Protection Act 2019. Okay, and there are like 13 specific dark patterns in the e-commerce sector right now to curb misleading design practices. The next topic is Senkaku Islands. Senkaku Islands were in news, of course, and if you talk about the Senkaku Islands, okay, so it is located in East China Sea, around 170 kilometers from Taiwan and 330 kilometers from China, and it is, if you talk about the administrative control, then it is part of the Ishigaki city of the Okinawa prefecture of Japan. Okay, and Utsuri, Kita, Kojima, Mina, Kojima, Kuba, Taisho, these are all parts of the Senkaku Islands. Okay, both China and Japan, they claim sovereignty over it based on historical grounds, and currently it is under the Japanese control. Very important to note. And these islands are strategically located, of course, and surrounded by rich fishing zones, and they're like potential energy resources also, and this makes it a like flashpoint in East Asia geopolitics. Next topic is coronal mass ejection. So astronomers have for the first time detected a coronal mass ejection on a like star other than the sun. So in the first place, what are coronal mass ejections? These are basically massive bubbles of plasma and magnetic fields. Very important to note, solar plasma and magnetic fields that are ejected from the sun's corona. Okay, and they're like often like twisted, and they like seem like flux ropes, and they can occur with solar flares. They can also like occur independently, and the frequency follows the 11-year solar cycle. So about once a week at solar minimum, 2 to 3 per day at solar maximum. That is the frequency of this solar plasma and magnetic fields. That is the CMEs, or the like coronal mass ejections. These CMEs, they interact with the Earth's magnetic field and transfer large amount of energy into the magnetosphere. This causes what? Geomagnetic storms and substorms. And what would it do? It would damage satellites. It would affect the power grids, communication systems, and also they create what? Auroras at the high like latitudes. Right? So it is important for space weather forecasting, and of course it will protect Earth space and space-based technological infrastructure as well. So that's the importance of coronal mass ejection. Next topic is Siliguri corridor. So the Indian Army has established 3 new garrisons near the Siliguri corridor to strengthen operational readiness, because they're like security concerns right now because of China's growing presence and Bangladesh's political changes, of course. Now here we'll talk about the Siliguri corridor. As you can see in this particular image, that this particular portion is the Siliguri corridor, the one in a red circle. So basically it is a narrow land strip in West Bengal that connects India's northeastern states with the rest of the country, and it is located between Mahananda and Tista rivers. Very important to note, strategically very important, because the disruption of Siliguri corridor would isolate the northeast and it will affect the supply of goods, services and military support. Now it is close to international borders with China, Nepal and Bangladesh as well, and this secures it, it ensures unhindered troop and logistics movement. Now its narrow width makes it susceptible to blockades or adversary control, and this also allows external powers to influence or destabilize the region. Okay, so very important from prelims perspective also. Next is Rolane festival. So it's an important festival of Tripura, in the tribal belts of Tripura. This particular festival is celebrated, an ancient festival of 5,000 years old, and it is celebrated in the Kinnauр district. It basically honors the celestial fairies called the Sawneys. And two men, they represent the symbolic groom called Raula and bride Rolani. They wear traditional Kinnori villains, then masks, ornaments, and symbolize mystical beginnings. And this is all about this particular topic, Rolani festival. Moving to the next topic, systematic observations financing facility, or SOFF. So this provides grants and supports for the collection of weather and climate data, especially in countries with significant observational gaps. Okay, and it is a specialized United Nations climate fund thing, and it was established by the World Meteorological Organization, UNDP, that is the United Nations Development Program, and UNEP, that is the United Nations Environment Program. Very important to note. So SOFF, okay, specialized UN climate fund, established by whom? World Meteorological Organization, UNDP, and UNEP. Very important to note. Now, the objective is what? To address severe observation gaps in weather and climate data collection, provide long-term financial and technical assistance to countries, especially the least developed countries and the small island developing countries. It further contributes to global public good by supporting accurate and reliable weather and climate observations. Okay. This was the topic. Moving to the next topic, rhesus monkeys. So the National Board for Wildlife, they have it has recommended that reinstating rhesus monkeys under the Schedule 2 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and this is important now to give it more protection. But here, if we talk about the rhesus monkey, they are basically diurnal and omnivorous. They live both in trees and on ground. Diverse habitats such as coniferous, deciduous, bamboo, mixed forest, mangrove, scrublands, rainforest. They stay everywhere. Okay, and they are spread across southern Asia, including Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, and India. Very important in terms of ecological role, because they help in dispersal of seeds, they help in regeneration of forests, and they also maintain the biodiversity. If we talk about the protection status, least concern in terms of IUCN Red List, but it is under the CITES Appendix 2. So the trade of rhesus monkeys is regulated, so that there is no exploitation. And now there is a proposal that we need to add it under the Schedule 2 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 for statutory protection to rhesus monkeys. Okay, moving to the next topic, Lake Turkana. So Lake Turkana was in news recently, because there was a volcanic activity and earthquake in this region in the East African Rift system. So and that is why the Lake Turkana's water levels, it has increased. So if they say it has dried up, no, that is not the truth. Now if we talk about Lake Turkana, as you can see in this image, it primarily it is in northern Kenya, and it has some of its parts in the northern region extending into Ethiopia. It is the largest desert lake in the world. Very, very important to note, and most saline lake in East Africa, fourth largest lake in Africa. It is also known as Jade Sea. Why? Because of its green-blue color. It is surrounded by arid and often barren landscape. Okay, and the declining water levels influence tectonic activity in the East African Rift system. Okay, and it is of course sensitive to climate change, and it is of course a critical indicator of regional hydrological and geological changes. Very important to note. Next is the Strait of Hormuz. This was in news because the Iranian forces recently they seized a Marshall Islands oil tanker while it was passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Now strategically very important, the Strait of Hormuz, because it is a critical choke point for global energy transit. Where is it located? It connects basically the Persian Gulf, as you can see in this image, and the Arabian Sea, with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. So the Persian Gulf, then the Gulf of Oman, and then the Arabian Sea. Okay, and Iran lies to the north, Oman to the south. Okay, and it is a critical choke point, as mentioned earlier, because 20% of the world's petroleum passes through the strait, this particular Strait of Hormuz, on a daily basis. So any disruption can impact, of course, global oil prices and energy security. So with this, we come to an end of this session. We tried to complete everything, 30 topics in this session, and we have completed most of the topics that appeared in this week. So thank you so much.